I went to Middlesbrough for the first time, actually.
Did you?
Yeah, I had a show there. I absolutely loved it.
Did you do the town hall or something?
Yes, I did. Yeah. I really liked it. I'd never been there before. The furthest I think I've gone up north to do any shows was probably Newcastle.
Yeah.
But I really liked Middlesbrough. I felt like, because it felt like it was like, don't get me wrong, it was a proper grey day. It felt like if there was an advertisement for Middlesbrough, that would have been the day. Very overcast, very grey and stuff. But the show, the people were so genuine,
They'd be buzzing
friendly.
Like you were there.
But I felt that.
It's like a proper night out for people. It's like they go and see a show and then they don't go home till 4 a.m. with the pizza stuck to their face.
No, I felt that. I really did. It's the first time I ever went there. But sometimes when we've done this tour, we've gone to places I've never been before. I've only heard about them.
Yeah.
And sometimes, obviously, you go to the major cities like your Newcastles and you're like, everyone, there's the. But Newcastle was a vibe, man. I really liked it. How was it for you growing up?
Yeah, so like for me, it's interesting because Middlesbrough is quite close to Newcastle geographically, and it's only like half an hour away, but it felt like 2 days away. Okay. And like to ever go to Newcastle was like a mega treat, because you were going to go to a city. So like where I grew up, it was a town. It was like, it's heavy industry. So like my school was right next to the place where they incinerated the mad cows.
Is it?
All that.
Right, that's a throwback for any of the listeners, man.
I know.
Yeah, man.
Mad cow disease, do you remember that?
Yeah, man.
So and it was near, it was in a really funny part of town, and it was right near like the chemical works and things like that. So I reckon if you turn the lights out in here, I'll probably glow in the dark. That's how like.
Well, it's interesting you said it, because a lot of small towns are like. I used to go to Cardiff a lot. I got a lot of family in Wales. And just outside, I've got a lot of family in Barry. Barry's become very, very popular with Gavin and Stacey.
Yeah.
But there is a chemical works there, and everyone's like, like if you checked my blood, there's probably some trace of chemical in there, in the DNA somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, man. But your upbringing is interesting though, because I know you used to do Irish dancing as well.
I did, yeah. So my dad's Irish on his side of the family. And also there was a girl who lived over the road from us who did it, and I just fancied going one time. And it was just like, it was something a bit different. Everyone thought it was weird when I was growing up, because who'd heard of Irish dancing before Riverdance? And that's when I was doing it. So, but I loved it because it was just... do you know what I really liked about it? No one cared about your background or what your mum and dad did for a job, because it just took away all that class stuff. It was just who's a good dancer and who isn't.
Oh, that must have been quite
So you went to competitions and it didn't matter like if your parents were rich or not. It was literally just whether you could dance. And I think that gave me like a confidence of like getting up on stage, and B, meeting people from different backgrounds. And so that really helped, because like Middlesbrough, I will defend it to the end of the earth. Like, for me,
you have to do
it
that,
gets slagged off all the time. But like, I would take Middlesbrough over anywhere else in terms of like what it taught me. Like, I would not be where I am if I wasn't from there, because it's made me really strong and like resilient, and also good humour. Like, I think when you're going through like tough times, you use humour to get through it. Like, you must do that more. You're like, you kind of just Steph, make a dark joke, don't you? Like, you just do, dodgy humour to just get you through these mad moments.
Of course. And I feel like with home, I always find it interesting when I meet someone, and I guess, look, for whatever experience they have, they don't like home. They're like, oh, I'll never move back there. I'll never go back there. And I guess that's just due to the experience. But even for myself, when I've got to do travelling, or even when I come back from holiday, there's like a sense of like, oh, I'm back. I'm back. Obviously, there's your home, but there is like something quintessentially British about just the small things that we feel like happen every day, but until you go somewhere else, you're like, that doesn't happen anywhere else. Like, I know that from going up north, people are just much more friendlier. So for us living in London, it's a bit more of a shock. You're like, oh right, people say good morning.
But you can't. The thing is, though, if you go to a shop in Middlesbrough, you can't get out of it because people are talking to you the whole time.
That's
and
the downside.
Like, if you get on the bus, it's like, you have to have a bit of crack with the bus driver and that as you get on and off.
Does it feel like everybody also knows each other though?
Yeah, I guess they do.
One of those vibes?
Or it's like, I guess it's nosy as well. Like, everyone's just nosy. But yeah, there is, like, that was a shock to me when I first came to London, because it was like on the tube, I kept smiling at people, and I just think people are going, what's wrong with her? What is wrong with that girl?
No, man.
And it's hardened me though, because I think I'm a bit like, I'm a bit more grumpy when I go home now. You know, I'm like, don't talk to me, and that's actually rubbish.
I think London builds you up with such a toughness that I also realise that whenever I go on holiday, you know, you're at the resort, it takes me a couple of days to like. But I think that's doing stand-up comedy and going up north, the friendliness and the warmth. And it's not to say, look, I can't just say it, London is harsh, but I feel like the friendliness and the warmth you get from up north, you're like, okay, cool, I can see why you lot come down here and will complain about the price of a pint and you know, you get on the tube and...
price of a pint. Oh my god! I remember when I first went to the BBC and like I was a guest on a show, and it was when the BBC had a bar in the middle of like the offices. So they used to have this bar, which is just mad to think of now, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
And when I went in there, I didn't know what to order because I was like, what do media people order? And someone ordered a spritzer in front of me, and I thought, oh, that must be like a hooch or like a Smirnoff Ice type of thing. So I was like, oh, I'll order a spritzer as well. And I got this drink, and obviously it's wine with soda water. And I was like, oh my God, the water down the wine here, and like the charge you a fortune. So there was all these things you learn, don't you? That you've got your own way of thinking of things. And then when you're thrown into a different place in the country or the world or whatever, you're like, what? I've had this wrong all the whole time.
So where did your love of, because, you know, going on stage is one thing. And I always find anyone who goes on stage has almost like a level of creativity about them. Yeah. You know, especially if you're doing dance, and there's also being in front of the limelight as such, if you want to call it that. So then how did it start to change for you when you got a little bit older? And I know you did you study engineering?
Yeah, I was doing engineering originally. Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it?
Transcend,
So at school, I'm an only child, and I think you go one or two ways. You're either like desperate for attention, or you're dead quiet. And I'm clearly desperate for attention. Yeah. So I would always be like, "Hey, everyone, I'm here." But I think it's that desperation to like please people. So I'd work really, really hard at school secretly because I didn't want to look like a swat. Yeah. But also try and be a bit of a class clown. And I think, but what I realised was, and my school was quite unique, so it was a school, because of how tough the area was and there were a lot of families struggling, they opened this brand new school which was sponsored by a business. So weirdly, it was sponsored by British American Tobacco, so a cigarette company. With the basically
that's showing the times,
which explains why they were all right with the smoking of the loose. But it was interesting. So our whole thing at school was we didn't have a head teacher, it was like a managing director, and like they presented it as a kind of a business place, and it was all about trying to get a job. You know, it was less, of course you had to do well in your exams, but there was less focus on that, because a lot of the kids in my school, like, they didn't have the structure at home to do well in exams. You know, it was like a real melting pot of people from really like tough backgrounds. Like it was one time where in my class there was like hitman's son, drug dealer's son, but also the policeman's son who was investigating the latest murder that happened. Every time Crime Stoppers was on, it was my mate in my class who had whatever the jewellery was that had been nicked out. So, but yeah, you don't, when you're growing up in that, you don't feel like that's a thing. You're not aware that you're either like poor or you're in a like criminal environment, or you just don't, it's just normality. And so, but what our school did really cleverly was like try and get us to use that to think about how we could get a job out of it, rather than going down the criminal route. They were like, right, we're going to introduce you to loads of businesses in the area, we're going to teach you about all that. And that's basically what happened. So I could see from a young age that there was loads of work in like the engineering sector. So even though I would have loved, you know, I wanted to be Richard and Judy when I was a kid, I didn't have any contacts in that world or anything. But I just went with the money, and I was like, I could see that, especially as being a woman, they were pushing for you to do all these different courses and pay for you to go on all these trips and things. So I thought, and I love science and maths and stuff. So I was like, this is me, I'll do this. So then the reason I ended up in the media is because I ended up working for Black & Decker, that make all like power tools and stuff, and DeWalt, which is the professional business side of it. And then while I was there, I ended up winning this award, and then I got noticed by the media, who were like, "Oh, who's this girl doing well in engineering?"
Was the Was it engineer?
Young Engineer for Britain, yeah.
Yes,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, so...
It's a big award, man.
I know,
At a young
isn't it?
age,
I
like-
know, yeah. It was mad,
that's not a joke, man.
Yeah. It's mad to
For
think
Black
of it
and
now.
Decker as well.
Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those weird things where you don't realise how, big it was in my life until I look back on it and go, actually, that was quite a life-changing moment for me, really.
Yeah, of
Because
course.
then suddenly the media were like, oh, we want to interview her, talking about being a woman in engineering. And because I had my accent, a northern accent, that was unusual for them as well.
Yeah.
Like I remember when I first went to the BBC and I literally was like, I'd never been in a BBC building before. Like, I'd never been in a media place. And I don't know how you felt when you first went into like a TV studio. You just like, wow, look at all these jobs that people do and look at this world.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to be in this world. Like, I never thought I would end up in front of the camera, even though when I was younger, I'd kind of wanted to. I just thought I want to work here. I want to like do whatever job. And so that's kind of what happened. I ended up doing a show talking about being a woman in science and engineering, and I just stalked the team and was like, please, can I have some work experience?
Wow.
So I got some work experience, but it was dead funny because before I got there, the boss had told the team, like, there's this new girl coming and she's really unusual. She's northern. And you were like, what? It's a national thing. And it was like some mad thing to say she's northern.
I'm not from like another planet, man.
Yeah, I know. And it was just dead funny. And I remember and it was great. Like, I really the BBC were amazing to me. Like, I spent a long part of my career there. But it was just mad how weird they thought I was. Like, they were like, oh, wow, you're really unusual. And there was this, when I went into the current affairs department where I was working, there was like, and I was like, started entry level, so I was answering the phones and stuff like that. And there was this map of Middlesbrough on the wall, my hometown, and I was like, why is there a map of Middlesbrough on the wall? So I went over and I was like, oh, hiya, do you know who's the smoggy, which is what you call a person from Middlesbrough because of all the heavy industry and the smog.
Yeah, of course.
And I was like, who's the smoggy? And they were like, what's she on about? And I said, oh, the map of Middlesbrough on the wall. And they were like, oh, that's because we're doing a programme about ASBOs. And I was like, what? And I said, what is that red line on the map, like the circle? And they were like, that's the no-go zone for the crew. And I was like, my mum and dad live in the middle of that.
Oh, shit.
But it made me realise they had no clue about real life, because I would have been, I could have walked through any part of Middlesbrough and felt safer than I did at the time walking through Shepherd's Bush at that time where where the BBC was, because it's just the world, isn't it? So, but it was like an epiphany, because in my head it just made me go, no matter what I do in this career, I need to make sure they understand that like it's not as wild out there as they think it is. And yes, there's tough elements to it, but there's also a lot of normality and a lot of people just getting on with their lives and like not the way that you think we are. So that was a big thing for me. And
did it feel like you had to really almost like represent where you were from?
Yeah,
even a
absolutely.
Little bit more?
I think I probably went more northern because of it.
Yeah, I would have.
I definitely did, because it became a running joke about getting me to say words as well. Like I once asked for like a Coke, as in like a can of Coke, but the way I say Coke, they thought I was saying cork, as in like a wine cork.
Yeah.
So like they would get me to say words like that. They were like, oh, Steph, ask for a Coke again. Go on, Steph, ask for a Coke again. I'd be like, can I have a Coke? And so I just, I just play up to it, because I think there was a sense, and I don't know if you've had this more, where I think people have underestimated me, and that's helped, because I'm like, if you underestimate me, that's actually quite useful.
Yeah. And I guess it's like being in your field as well with business.
Yeah.
And also media as well. And then like you're representing where you're from as well. So you're representing Middlesbrough. You're from up north as well, and you're talking about like business and media. So I guess it's almost, and also like what you like have been able to achieve before that as well. So what you was doing at things like Black and Decker, and like you come from a place where you're like, oh, like this is my surroundings. It's all I know. But I guess also the way it's being portrayed outside of where I'm from, I'm like, oh wow, I didn't
totally
know it was right. Is that how you know? So that must be quite encouraging when you're like, okay, cool, watch this. Yeah
totally, because I didn't realise to them I wasn't normal. I just thought I was normal, like didn't think, I've had no X Factor kind of hardship in my life. I've got no big sob story. I've seen some tough stuff, but I think most people have. I've got a regional accent, but most people have got an accent. So they didn't realise, I think, at the time, I think it's changed a bit now, that they were weird. They were the unusual ones. If you look at the whole country, the unusual ones are the people who work like the posh people in the media and in politics. So I was like, well, they need to see a bit of outside. Like, this will make you laugh. One of the things, so yeah, obviously business journalism is my bag, and because I'm fascinated by how we make money and who's spending it and all that. And one of the things that really blew my mind was when I was working at Radio 4, and the way they used to kind of get a sense of how consumers, how shoppers were feeling, like the kind of barometer, was John Lewis's results coming out, like their financial results. And I'm like, John Lewis is literally one of the poshest places on the planet. That is not telling me anything about how my nana's spending her money. Like, John Lewis, what are you on about? Even Marks and Spencer's is posh. Like, come on, let's get to basics. Have a look at what's happening in B&M and Poundland and stuff like that, and then we'll find out.
That's what the deals are, man.
So, but it was just funny, and I kind of, I don't know, I realised, I think it gave me confidence in thinking, actually, there is some stuff that I can tell you a bit about the world and what people are thinking outside of like this media and political bubble. And don't get me wrong, everyone was lush to me my whole career. I haven't had like a time when anyone's been horrible, but they just made assumptions about me based on my voice and where I've come from.
And that must be hard, because I guess it's like there's always that feeling with like up north that it's always linked with hardship.
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know if that comes from like, you know, maybe the era in like the 70s with the miners' strikes and stuff. So I don't know if it feels like, oh yeah, it must be really hard up there. Yeah. You know, it must be, you know, really hard.
Yeah.
You're like, no, it's vibes, man. Like,
Well, it is, like, you're right. There is a lot of hardship, but, you know, without going into loads of economic ranting, it's because we don't have the same investment in the north that you get in the south. So there's definitely a divide. But there's loads of like pockets of fabulousness, you know, there's beautiful countryside, there's amazing entrepreneurs, there's like brilliant shops and independent shops and, you know, pubs and everything else. So there's football teams, but I won't go into all that. But there's loads of good stuff, and I hate it when we get kind of lumped together as being, oh, poor them. Because yes, there is things where it is poor us because we're not getting the same investment, but it's not in the terms of the people we are and what we're about. Yeah.
And also, you worked on, when you mentioned the BBC, but we worked on Tomorrow's World as well.
Oh, yeah.
That is, listen, man, that programme.
Yeah, that was mad.
What was I like working on that?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know it, this is basically like a science show where they used to tell you about what gadgets and science things were going to come out in the future. Hence why it was called Tomorrow's World. And I was working, so it was when I was about 19 or 20. And I was like a runner on it, and it was when the programme was live. So they used to do these experiments live on the show.
Oh wow!
And then I got asked to look at. There was this fella coming on this on the day I was doing, and he was this like Glaswegian guy, so really thick Glaswegian accent. And so the producer put me with him because they thought, oh, they'll be able to understand each other because of the accents. And he'd invented something which makes your windows of your house eject if it catches fire. So if it detects smoke, it kicks the windows out. Yeah. Which, I mean, obviously great for a bungalow, but anything bigger and he'd and so I was looking after him, and which literally meant getting him coffee and stuff like that and chatting to him. And he was like dead nervous, and he was quite a big guy. He was quite red in the face. He was really stressed about this. And I was like, don't worry, it'll be fine. We did the rehearsal, and the window didn't work. And I was like, oh man. And he was saying to me, oh, I've put my life savings into this. You know, I've like remortgaged. And he was talking about his relationship with his wife and all the pressure. And I'm like, oh my God, it needs to work. So I got the producer, and I'm like, I'm really worried about this guy. And they're thinking, who's this daft runner who's it's telly. Whatever happens.
Of course.
So anyway, then I went back out to see him and I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And he was really, really red and he said, oh, I've missed my heart bypass operation to be here for this.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, oh my God, he's going to have a heart attack on telly.
Yeah.
So I go to the producer and tell her this, and then she's like, right, okay, we need to make it work. So on telly, what they had to do was, when the moment came where they needed the window to eject, I had to lie underneath the window and basically put my hands up and pull the window out just to make sure it worked. And it was like, and that's when I realised how fake telly was.
Yeah. When you see TV, I think like whenever you get to see TV from like your home and you're like, especially, I guess like Saturday night TV is like, that's I think that's core when you're like, oh, this is how an entertainment show's made. I remember watching shows like Blind Date.
Oh, yes.
And thinking it was happening there and then.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it was 10 o'clock now. What studio? Where is this happening? And realising, and they do that bit on Blind Date where they go on holiday, they come back. And I'm like, so how did they do that then? I thought it happened.
Yeah,
like,
in real time.
Like in real time. But I think the fakery of television is, I don't know, there's even times where I've done television and you see it and you're like, oh, wow, we fully made them laugh.
Yes.
For that bit and used it for the bit that wasn't too funny.
Yeah. No one ever admits that though, do they? It's like, that laughter thing. But also just how it looks, it's not as glamorous as everyone thinks. And obviously we both know that there is a glamorous side to it. But there's also times where things are just like gaffer taped together.
Oh, yeah.
And you're thinking, is this set going to land on my head?
Yeah.
Like,
people would never know. Yeah. Oh, that's great. You're like, listen, if only you knew.
Yeah.
How close I was to dying. So like, you then also went on to then be a presenter on breakfast, BBC Breakfast News. How was that? Because I remember that very vividly, where your segment would come up and you'll tell everyone what's going on in the world. And so how was that transition where you've had a little bit of a taste of television, and now... And I guess it's also live as well. You're the first person that a lot of people would see in the morning.
I know, that's a weird thing that you had. You were like, loads of people used to come up to me all the time and go, oh, I wake up with you in the morning, or I watch you in my pants. But yeah, so what happened was I was working behind the camera as a producer. So I was a producer on the 10 o'clock news, and it was when the financial crisis happened. So like 2008 time, it was totally wild. And I was the lead producer of Business News, working with Robert Peston, who now is the political editor at ITV, and we have a podcast together. But at the time, I was his producer, and it was mad. Like, we were constantly in Downing Street getting briefings, constantly having to fly to America. It was really, really fun. But also obviously really hard for the economy. I don't want to make out like I just benefited. Although I did. That's the thing. It's a bit like now Trump going mad actually really helps me, because I
guess it's like
stuff to explain.
Yeah, I always look at like news as like, the person presenting you that's now knowing that
you love chaos.
Yeah, you're like, well, it's all kicking off, isn't it?
Yeah, I know it's really bad, but you do.
If you're in the front line to report the story, it's... Yeah, man.
It is. You're totally right. Anyway, so I was behind the scenes for a long time, and then one day it was literally one of those moments where someone was walking along the corridor and was desperate to find someone to do the business news on Radio 2 that afternoon, because the person who normally did it was when Chris Evans had the Drive Time show, was ill, and they saw me and they just said, oh, have you done live radio before, Steph? And I remember getting like a nudge off Robert Peston, as if, just lie. And I said, yes, I have. Yeah. And they went, can you come on and do the business news this afternoon? And I was like, yeah. And I think I respond best when I'm just thrown into a situation. So I went and did it, and it went really well. And then the Breakfast TV editor at the time heard me on the show, and then she asked me to come and do telly. And then in that typical way, no one really checks people's CVs or anything. It's just like, cool, you're in. Yeah. And as we were about to go live, you've got like 10 seconds in your ear before you're about to start speaking on telly. Someone was like, oh, good luck, Steph, but you've done loads of live TV before, haven't you? And I was like, no. And then it was too late, and they were like, she's never done live telly before. But I'd worked behind the scenes long enough, and so it was like a baptism of fire. It was, and I remember my boss saying to me, like, because you don't, I think people think as well, like, especially in news, that you would have a whole styling team and people to help you, and you don't really. You
really?
No, you don't.
I never knew that.
Yeah, you have no help with your clothes or anything.
Nothing.
You just,
Because you got, I feel like news presenters, anyone who has to do breakfast TV, news presenters, they always look like smart, slick, nice suits.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Nah,
like,
yes.
oh, really? I never knew that.
So, no, I mean, you get your makeup done, brilliant, but you don't get help with your clothes. So sometimes all the girls would turn up in the same, like, colour outfit. We'd all be in red, and it'd be like the Tory party conference or something that day, and we'd be like, oh, look like we're in Labour colours or whatever.
Man.
So, no, you didn't. And so the first time I did breakfast, and you can see it on YouTube, I, like, went and got myself, like, what I thought was a good dress from Topshop and a pair of heels from New Look, and my editor at the time was like, Steph, do you know what, you did a good job there, but you look like a Middlesbrough tart. Because I literally, and she wasn't being mean, she was just and she was a Geordie, to be fair to her, but it was just funny because I hadn't thought about, like, how when I sat down the skirt length, because you just I had big heels on, and actually it wasn't suitable for the studio, and like I had the hair colour I've got now, actually, like white hair, which was a bit too much for then because kind of reflected off the studio lights and it was a bit too white and mad. So then they did help me for a bit and get me a stylist, but she basically aged me about 100 years. Oh, so the next time I went on, I literally had like a fluffy cardigan on and a pearl necklace or something. And I was like, I literally can't do this. Yeah, totally. I literally looked like someone's posh nana.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was trial and error to begin with. But that was fine because it was brilliant, and, you know, I had
Let
the
me
best
ask you
time.
something. As a journalist on live TV, especially the news, what is it like when you have to report like a major story? Because I always think that because you're going to deliver the news that someone might not have heard, or, you know, you might have even something prepared beforehand in like breaking news. You know, this has happened. Straight to what's that like?
It's really exciting, but
Really?
I think you either love it or you hate it.
Okay.
Because there's nothing I love more than someone saying in my ear, "We've got breaking news, so and so's died," or whatever. You've got to deliver, something's happened. Obviously, it is horrendous if it's a tragedy. Don't get me wrong, and I've had to report live on terrorist attacks and things like that, which is absolutely horrendous. But I don't know, if you're a news presenter, a reporter, you get a thrill out of explaining what's going on to people.
Yeah, the first time.
Yeah. But you know what is funny, and people might not realise this, you have different levels of deaths. So you have what's called a category 1 death, which is someone like, in this case now it would be the king, or it would be the Prime Minister.
That's real stuff.
Yeah, so they're people of a level where if they die while you are live on air, you have to go into this whole protocol. So you have to follow a really strict procedure. And because it's so important that you have to get it right, you rehearse it. So on breakfast, once a month, we'd rehearse the Queen dying before she died.
Is it?
Yeah, and it honestly, and you'd do the show as if it was real. So you would come off air. So we'd finish the show at 9:10 or whatever. Yeah. And then we'd start the show again. And then they'd say in our ear, so it starts with them telling you there are reports that, one of the category 1 person has died. And then you have to wait for like the head of news at the BBC to confirm it, to check it's not just like...
Because I heard there's a telephone that rings. And if this phone rings... I
don't know about that, like...
Is that not true? Someone said...
Like a red phone in the middle of the room.
Someone said there's a red phone, and if this phone rings, then, like you're saying, like the Queen or the Member of Parliament has died. That's not true.
Yeah. I don't think there's a specific phone. Yeah. There might have been back in the day, but there is definitely like this protocol where the head of news has to be the one to tell you it, so that it's definitely official. So it has to however many sources. And then you have to do this thing where you've got to cut to black. So first of all, you announce it, but the camera cuts to one presenter. The other presenter has to go behind the back of the sofa and change to a black outfit. So you have black outfits around the back,
Wow.
Like
so they're just on standby just in case.
All the time, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And do you know what? My weight fluctuates, so I always panicked that I'd never fit into the outfit when it came to the moment. So you have the outfits out the back, like just off camera behind the sofa. And so one presenter kind of buys time while the other presenter gets on the black outfit. Then once they're ready, it'll cut to them announcing that whoever it is who's died, and it cuts to black and they play the national anthem, and then you have to come back and if it's a royal family member, you have to read a very specific statement from Buckingham Palace, like really, and every time we rehearsed it, I was so scared because it's so posh as well, and I ad-lib a lot, but this script is so strict that I was convinced I was just going to get it wrong and just go, oh no, she's pegged it or whatever, in the moment. But it was fascinating, and we used to regularly rehearse this, and you'd also have to put like stuff across the screen so that anyone walking past the studio doesn't think the person's died, because we had that happen once where we were rehearsing it and then one of the runners had gone past and was like, oh my God, the Queen's dead, and we were like, no, we're just rehearsing it, but they'd already so they didn't put it out on social media.
Oh my God, man.
No. So
oh wow.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating, like those types of news things, because it is, if you're the person that has to deliver that's you in the archives forevermore. Like you're gonna, in 100 years time, they're gonna play that clip of you.
Play that clip.
Yeah, so you feel
think of that as well.
You feel the weight of it on your shoulders. But again, it's fun, like in that kind of being part of history way.
Yeah, of course. Oh wow, I never thought of, especially the archive stuff. I never thought of that, because you just take it for granted. You're like, but that would be the part that they play forever. They show it in films or whatever it is. Oh wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I
love finding out stuff like this. Oh, so then you was on BBC Breakfast News for quite a while.
Yeah,
now.
Nearly 10 years.
Yeah,
and I loved it. And I think for me, like coming back to what I said at the start about wanting to show life outside of like the city, that financial city vibe, like what's going on in the stock markets. My thing was more, let's get out and show loads of businesses. So I would forever be in factories or, in the middle of farmers' fields or whatever. And that was really fun because you were showing off like different jobs to people, because you'd see on the telly me somewhere in a construction site and you'd see all the people doing the jobs behind, which I always thought was good for people so they could see them, and it made things more interesting. If I'm talking about the latest growth figures, who cares? But if I'm in somewhere fun, like a toy factory or something like that, although it meant I did spend my life in hard hats and high-vis jackets.
Okay.
And someone set up a fetish website of Steph in safety gear. Yeah. And I had to explain it to my mum.
Freaky guys.
I know. Someone, do you know, this is another funny thing. Someone also set up a Twitter account pretending to be my high-vis jacket. And I know. And they used to like tweet as if it was my high-vis jacket with me on there.
Weird.
I know. And then eventually I did get a message from them saying, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to close the account because I've now got a girlfriend.
Oh.
And I was like...
It's like creepy, but it's sweet, but it's still a little bit creepy.
Yeah, it's a bit, yeah.
Knowing that someone took the time and said, I better let her know that unfortunately this comes to an end. You're like, listen, it didn't need to start.
Yeah,
It didn't need to start. So then how was it like, because where you are now within your middle right now currently, and when I say middle, probably,
I'm glad you said middle and not end.
Yeah, no, not yet, don't worry. But like where you are now within your middle of, like when you had your show Steph's Packed Lunch, what was that like now, having a transition of like now you've got your own show? That must have felt quite nice as well.
Yeah, well, you'll know this feeling as well, because like we got our shows around the same time, didn't we?
Yeah, of
we
course.
both had the same production company as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was weird because I'd done Breakfast for a long time, and by that point I'd done a few other shows as well, like a few consumer shows like Watchdog and Shot Well for Less and things, and done various bits of like what you call primetime telly, so outside of news. But then got pregnant, so I was pregnant with my little girl, and I thought, I can't do the mad breakfast hours anymore. Like, I loved it, but I thought, I can't get up at 3:30 anymore. Like
3?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know you guys woke up that early,
Yes.
That's the cool time.
Yeah.
What time did you have to be on set then?
We got him for about 4:30, 5.
Oh my God.
So it was like, it was brutal, but
yeah,
brilliant, but also, in terms of like
5
your health.
days a week, yeah.
Yes. So then I just thought, I'm going to leave. I'm going to just go on maternity leave and then figure out what I want to do with my life. And then that's when Channel 4 came and said to me, oh, we're setting up, we want to do a show from Leeds. Obviously, as a northerner, that was massive to me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, I'd love to be part of it. And then we did pilots for it while I was pregnant. And then when we were about to launch, it was when COVID hit.
Oh, the pandemic.
And then you and I both ended up doing shows in our houses. Because I was like, tell me what have you learned from what Mo's doing? We're like, absolutely nothing. And I was like, Mo's probably asking the same question, going, what can we do to make this?
You know what was so interesting about that is that I was able to do studio shows before. So I was like doing a show from my house. Like in my head, I never forget, I was like, I lived at that time I had an apartment, top floor as well. Yeah. So I was like, it's up a couple cameras. I was thinking, in my head, I was like, this would be like a webcam kind of vibe. Yeah. I don't know how it was for you, but like, I never forget the day where the cameraman came and he goes, I think he was Italian. And he goes, okay, I'm just going to bring the kit up. And I was like, cool. So he brings the kit up and I was like, oh, that seems like enough. And he goes, yes, we're going to need the spare room because we need that as a gallery. And I was like, okay, cool. And I was like, oh, so where's the cameras? Are they going to be at? And he's like, no. And he brought these massive studio cameras in my small flat at the time.
Really?
Oh my God, Steph. As soon as I seen these cameras, I genuinely was like, I thought, I don't think we need to do this show. Like, my whole flat had turned into essentially a set, but it didn't work in a flat. Oh my!
That is hardcore. Well, mine was a bit different.
Your house, right?
Yes, because I was up north, so the same price of a flat up north is a house.
Man!
Yeah, mine was set up like the Big Brother set.
Okay.
So we kind of had a room in the house, and I was renting it, thankfully, so I could move out straight away after and not have tourists constantly popping around. But we had it set up like cameras around our kitchen, living room area, and then the crew were all in the garage. So
that was the gallery.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
So that worked out quite well for us.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. But it was just so weird because I was just on my own in the room talking all the time, and obviously we'd do like Zooms or whatever, it was just quite surreal because sometimes they'd go, we haven't got anyone to interview, so you're just gonna have to talk, and there was nothing going on, so I'd be like, well, I can see Pat putting out the bins and like
your show must have been so much harder because yours was live, right?
Live every day for an hour, but also, do you know what? Everyone was broadcasting from their house at that point. Like, even if you're not a TV presenter, you were having to suddenly do Zooms for all your meetings. Yeah, so you were also broadcasting from your house. Yeah. So I felt like I was part. I didn't want to not do it and not be part of like what we'd all, been forced into in a way. Like everyone's suddenly having a part of the house that was their tidy, nicely decorated, put posher books than they actually read or behind them. And do you know, actually, funnily enough, I was in Belfast last week. And this fella comes up to me in the bar and he went, I just want to thank you for lockdown. And I was like, what do you mean? And he went, he said, I own a gin company called Jawbox Gin, and he said, and you had a bottle of it in the background on and it was when I was hosting Have I Got News For You from the house. So we did like the first episode where it was on Zoom, and I mean it was chaos, but in the background there must have been the gin, and he said he sold out of the gin that day. Like,
wow.
And just a year later he came up and said thanks.
Ain't it mad to think that like you wait your whole life for sometimes opportunities like this, to do a show. To do a show is an extraordinary feat in itself, but to then do it, I'm doing it in my house, knowing at the time, I remember how I was, when it was done, I was like, okay, cool.
Never again.
You don't need to go. Like, it's like my house was turned upside down. Obviously, it went back to normal, but it was having these 3 massive cameras in my house and everything else, but I always look back at that moment and I was like, wow, I can say I've done a show from my house.
Yeah.
During a time that we couldn't go outside, or we had one day where the show wasn't able to air, just like technical difficulties. And we were about to go live, and I never forget, it was counting down. It's like 10, 9, 8, 7. What? Yeah. Okay, well, someone's got to tell him. And I was like, what's going on? Someone's got to tell him. And I was like, well, tell me what? And then someone said, yeah, Mo, the show can't go live. But also, I wasn't gutted. I was like, we're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, there are people struggling a lot more than I am right now. And also just knowing that I was all over the place, man. Like, I put on a ton of weight.
Yeah,
my hair.
we all had.
Some of my friends still send me pictures now and being like, this is what you used to look like. Like, yeah, man. But
no, it was a crazy time, wasn't it? But like, everyone just did what they had to get through it.
Yeah.
I think it was like nice to be part of that from a, because we're not key workers or anything where we weren't doing any graft.
But I felt like we was involved in some way.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
History. We were part of history.
Yeah, we'll be in the archives.
Yeah, we'll be in a textbook or whatever, text AI robot delivering the... Yeah.
So then how was it finally when you got to go to the studio? Because it seemed like a real vibe in the studio.
Yeah, it was. It was class. Like, honestly, what I loved about it was... not to keep banging on about the North, but it just felt like it was like Northern at its core, but spoke to the nation. And and what I mean by that is regional, like in the sense of everyone who worked on there came from all different places and could live and work in the area in a way that often you can't in London. So a lot of people who don't live in London miss out on working in the media because they don't live in London and it's too expensive. So it was great from that perspective. And I think because we were the underdogs, there'd been TV shows on daytime that have been going for a lot longer than us, with much bigger audiences than us. We were like the underdogs, and that meant we really experimented with stuff. Like, we were right on a canal, so we were regularly throwing people in the canal, and and yet we also talked a lot about current affairs as well, in a way that I've always done it in a newsy way, but this meant we could just debate it a bit more, and it was just fun. Like, I had a proper laugh. Like, I had nearly 4 years of just having a laugh and getting fed amazing food every day, because obviously packed lunch. There was a chef every day, and it wouldn't be like some 2-bit chef from wherever. It would be like Simon Rimmer or John Way or Jack Stein or these brilliant chefs who would basically make my lunch every day. And it was not a job. Like, I can't claim it was a job, because every day, and also the hours, and the fact I could live up north again with my little girl, I could drop her at nursery, get to the studios, do the show, and then pick her up afterwards, and it just felt like amazing. So I feel really privileged to have had that.
And that must have been nice, being able to do television where you've gone to London and you've had people kind of make fun of the way you speak or where Middlesbrough's from, to then go and do a show within the BBC and present, like you're saying, really serious news topics about business and current affairs. But then it must have been so fun now being it's afternoon, because still report stuff, but it's more
there was
of a
loads of
vibe.
fun.
I've got people that want to be in this. You had a live studio.
Yeah,
and
we had an audience who were our lunch mates who became part of the gang, and they all had normal jobs as well. They might have been firefighters or nurses or whatever, and every so often they'd come in and sit and chat to us as well. And it meant that gave us a richer debate on stuff as well, because they're not like us who are not really normal anymore. They were people who could just bring that normality. And it was funny because we really did some mad stories. Like, I interviewed some woman who made money from farting in jars.
What?
She used to sell her farts in a jar for about $100. And it's I mean, how do you even capture a fart? That's part of this. But, there was another time, I interviewed a woman who married a chandelier.
Yeah.
And it's and we can laugh about it, but she seriously had this. I remember when she came in and she said to us, "Oh, you'll have to move some of the lights because they're flirting with me."
What?
And I was like, "What?" And I was fascinated by her, because I just thought, this is your reality. You're not. Who am I to judge? And so I just loved interviewing her, and so I think it was that as well. We got to do some really just wild interviews. You're so going to leave this and Google the woman who sells farts in a jar. No, you are.
As soon as it's done, I'm like, wrong. When you do a show like that, and it, you know, because I always remember, like, when you do a show that comes on Monday to Friday you know, you have core fans essentially. But
yeah. I
also forget how much people realise that, like, places in, like, you know, people that are maybe in hospital or prisons that regularly watch this kind of television, you know.
Yes, because, you know, I did a series for Netflix last year with Boris Becker, the tennis player.
Oh, yes.
Amazing guy. So I did Celebrity Bear Hunt with him. And one of the first things he said to me was, "Oh, I watched you in prison."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Boris Becker?
Yes.
Fucking hell.
I know.
That is mad.
So I was like, I was with Shirley Ballas at the time from Strictly, and he said, "Oh, yeah, I watched you in prison, and I used to watch you on a Saturday night when I got out." And I was like, what?
Boris Blood Clot Becker. That is mad.
And I just had this vision of all these fellas in ones with prison, like, watching packed lunch, thinking,
wow.
Get in. Yeah, no, that was a mind melt for me, definitely.
How was it when you went into, because it was in Costa Rica, right? Bear Grill. What's it called again?
Bear Hunt.
The Bear Hunt with Bear Grylls in it. How was that? Because I seen, didn't you smash, like, you
fell off a cliff and smashed into a wall.
Smashed into a wall. How was that?
Yeah, that was painful. I'll be honest, that absolutely
you carried on going and stuff as well.
Yeah,
right?
And I really did smack into it, and like had a massive bruise on my bum, which I love showing the photo to people. But yeah, I mean, do you know what? Right, because the show had never been on before. I had nothing to watch. Yeah. So if I watched it now, I don't know if I'd have done it because I would have been too frightened. But in the moment, I absolutely loved it.
Really?
Like, I turned into an animal.
Are you like quite an adrenaline junkie?
Oh,
then?
I'm a massive adrenaline junkie. But in a way that I didn't think I was a physical adrenaline junkie.
Okay.
I thought I was just like, I love a drama. I love the TV stuff and all that. But what I realised was, in that moment of being there and doing these challenges, I literally turned like cave woman. I was like, wait, I need to get away from him. And, and like, I just went really feral. And I'm the type of person who normally, if I'm going to sit down on the floor, I'll put my coat down to sit on it, you know. And in this case, I was like clawing my way through like scorpion nests and not caring. And I don't know where that came from, but it was like a really fun thing to find, was this like animal woman that I didn't know existed. I don't know why I'm like doing animal actions with my hands as I'm talking.
Was it also like, I don't know, was there also a part of you that wanted to prove people's perception in a different way? Because then we only know you as sometimes someone who's maybe like a presenter that does, you know, business news essentially. So was there also a part of you was like, I'm going to show a different side to me.
Yes.
That only like my close friends and family would see, you know?
I suppose, but I think there also was a side of me that I didn't even know existed that came out in that. Because I'm not, you know, when I went into it, I was not the fittest, and, you know, especially out of the girls, I was the fattest. And I was just like, and, you know, I'm in my mid-40s, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And the first night and the first challenge, I am rubbish in the first challenge. And that first night I thought, I'm not going to even get used to this place because I'm going home. Because there was massive personalities in there too. And I just suddenly felt like a little shy wallflower. But like I say, going in that, you do all these different challenges. And then if you lose a challenge, you get put into a bear pit, which is a cordoned off bit of the jungle where basically a gun goes and Bear Grylls chases you down. And so the minute that gun went, I don't know, it was like something came alive inside of me. And then, so that was, I think it was more a realisation for me. I didn't know what I was going to be like in there. I thought, I'll give it my best shot, but I didn't go in thinking everyone's going to see a different side of me, because I didn't know what that side was. So it is funny now though, because like my little girl is just... Like, I've never really done things that kids have known me for. I've only ever done, like, grown-up telly. Not in that dodgy way, but, well, not that there's anything wrong with that. But you know what I mean? So so kids don't normally know me, and it's funny now. Like, my little girl's like, oh, my friends have seen you in the jungle. And, you know, and it's just, that's been quite, like, fun and cute as well.
Was you scared of, like, the things that was in the jungle, though?
But
scorpions
weirdly,
spiders on your thing?
before I got there, yes, because I'm the type of person who gets bitten by something and my arm swells up and falls off. I react. I'm such a like pasty, like northerner who reacts to things. But no, I think when you're in that habitat, like, and you've not got your phone and you've not got all the things that normally distract you, I just was noticing nature a lot more. Like, I remember there was times where, like, me and Big Zoo would just be sitting talking to a crab. Like, it was just because you just were in their world and you didn't. It wasn't as scary, and plus you knew there was a big crew around you ready to take a creature out. Were you to be, a crocodile come your way, I'm sure someone would have. Well, I'd like to think someone would have got the sniper out and taken it out.
When you've done that show, you've got to show a different side of yourself. Has there like now been more attention to go into other reality shows like I don't know, like Strictly or like I'm a Celeb? Because I guess that must start happening once someone's seen one thing. Do you know what I mean?
And I have for the last however many years I have been asked about doing Strictly and I'm a Celeb and things. And to be honest, when this bear hunt came up, it was the right time because my show had finished. Before, whenever I've been asked, I've either been like pregnant or in the middle of a show or just can't fit it in with my life. And this bear hunt one was perfect because my show had just finished and I wasn't really doing anything. I was just, because it was a bit of a shock when it ended. So I was kind of unemployed, for want of a better phrase. And so I was like, great. But now I think, I don't know, I've done that and I loved it. I don't know if I could do I'm a Celeb now because I've just done that. I don't know. I really loved what I did on that show. And again, Strictly, I don't know if I'm a bit past it now, but never say never. Always with these things. Man. Just depends what else is going on in your life.
And you've kind of made your debut in acting as well, alongside Michelle Visage as well.
Oh yes, I mean I was being myself, so I wasn't acting. I'm definitely not an actor, but would
you ever dive into that though?
Nah, I'm rubbish at it. Honestly, I'd be the over actor who where they said something like, "Can you look upset?" and I'd be like, No, I couldn't do it. But so I did Smoggy Queens. Yes, obviously set in Middlesbrough, written by the brilliant Phil Dunning. I'd bumped into him in a bar actually because at a birthday party. It was Jack Rook's birthday, the guy who wrote Big Boys. We were there and got chatting to Phil and he said, I've written this like comedy about Middlesbrough. And I was like, get in, like I'm buzzing about that. And he said, yeah, do you want to be in it as you? I was like, only if I can be like really awful in it or, like not, can you take the mick out of me? And he was like, absolutely. So so I went and did days filming with them. And it was weird because they filmed it in Middlesbrough, but they filmed it in the pub that I used to drink at growing up. And I was thinking, I've snogged plenty of people in here. And, like I've got some, if I could see a time lapse of me walking in and out of here. So, it was really fun. They're about to do the second series now, which if the timings work out, I might be in as well. But it was fun. Like Michelle Visage as a downtrodden office worker. Man. She was amazing in it.
She's lovely, man. I worked with her on That's My Jam.
Yes.
And I think she's done the pilot for us. She's good vibes.
Yeah,
man.
she is. She's great.
Very, very good
and she's
vibes.
Dead supportive of of the industry, but also all the different creatives in the industry and different parts of the country. Like she can do a northern accent really well now, and I love her for that. She's great.
So, before you get to your end, like I know, like within like your life, you've also become somewhat of I say somewhat. You're an author as well.
Yes. So yeah.
So like, and I know it's July 2025. You have your book coming out, right? And how does this start to like? Because as we get closer towards your end question, your story is like a real. Because you said that in your life you never like came from hardship or anything.
No.
But I definitely feel there's a theme of just like proving people wrong a little bit in some ways. Where you've gone to a school that was like predominantly like a business school, but then through that then you've transcended into being a journalist and then saying, all right, I'm gonna do TV. I've not done live, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna prove everyone right, going on Bear Grylls essentially, and being like, okay, cool, like I'm gonna do the things, I'm gonna do the tasks. So now being an author, how does this start to shape like where you are currently?
Yeah.
You know, in light of your book coming out.
Because it's again, like, I am someone who likes doing loads of things. Like, I do like trying different stuff, and I'm just dead interested in lots of different worlds of, you know, creative stuff, but also like the business side of things as well.
Of course.
And so the book came about because I'm obsessed with like thrillers and crime fiction, and I read loads of it and I watch loads of it. And I saw the brilliant Harlan Coben do a speech at this event, because I do quite a lot of interviewing authors at events and things.
Yeah.
And I heard him talk about the what if, like, if you're in a normal situation, always ask yourself, like, what if now we saw someone walk past us outside here and we all thought they were dead? Like, what would you do? And that, like that. So I used to, when I was on broadcast, I used to sit all the time in between, like, you know, being on air. There's always that downtime, isn't there, where you're not really doing anything and you're just sitting about. And I used to always say, what if this broadcast got hijacked? Like, what would we do? Because I think people have this perception that there's really hardcore security whenever you're out and about, you know, reporting or whatever. And there really isn't. It's like you and a couple of people, then anyone could jump in front of you and do whatever. Yeah. So I just used to ask my team all the time, and I worked with different teams wherever I went. So I always used to say to the camera team or whatever, what would you do? What would you do? And everyone had different reactions. And so then I thought, and I was telling my mate about this, who's a crime writer called Anne Cleves, and she created like Vera and Shetland and all that. So she's amazing. And she said, you should write it. Yeah, she was like, you should write it. And I was like, I don't think I can write, because I know I can story tell, like, speaking verbally, and that's been my job forever. But I had no confidence as a writer. Like, I really didn't. I remember, like, in my at a uni being pointed out how bad my English was. And I remember an ex, when I got dumped, she said something to me like, and your vocabulary's terrible. I was like, I know of all the things to say to someone.
It's not there, it's there.
Yeah.
Fuck off, man.
Yeah. So I didn't have any confidence writing, and I found it quite intimidating, the book world, in that way. I love reading books, but I just found it, I thought, I can't do it. But then with lockdown happening and doing the show in the house, I don't like cooking, and so everyone was doing banana bread. I just started writing this story, and then I just really loved it, because I was creating these characters, and this, you know, this whole premise is there's a reporter live on air in the middle of like a really important interview. She's, you know, interviewing one of the most powerful men in the country, and while she's doing this interview, she's told in her earpiece that her child and her wife have been kidnapped. And she has to do everything that the person who's hijacked the interview is telling her to do, but not give it away to the audience. So she's got to ask all these questions. So then the people in the gallery, like the control room of a TV show, are like, why the hell is she asking these mad questions? And so then it all happens over 20 minutes, and it's like live on telly, but it keeps going back 5 years. So is it to do with a stalker? Is it to do with like a political corruption thing? Is it to do with terrorism? Is it to do with grooming? And so like I explore all these different plots, but so it's all centered around this hijack, but there's also a lot of my like politics with a little p, like of how the media treats people from different backgrounds. So there's a lot of that in there as well, and there's a lot of like, but not in a big worthy way, it's more just what I've seen in my life, and what I've, like, the power and the corruption and the lies that I've seen, and what people have got away with because of their power and their wealth. And so I wanted to kind of turn it on its head, so it'd actually be, I don't want to give it all away, but you know, it would be a sense of, actually, when you're underestimated, that's when you're at your most powerful. Point I made earlier. And so there's loads, and it's fiction, and I have to keep telling everyone it's fiction. But there's a lot of stuff from my life in there too.
Yeah, of course.
So, and that's been really fun, and I love creating these characters, and you know, hopefully it'll end up on telly one day too.
I can see it already.
Well,
I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, and I honestly, it's just fun doing stuff. I think in life, you know, you can worry too much and not take risks because you're worried about what people will think of you, and actually just don't give a shit. Like, just have a go, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
That's it. That's all you can do is just try.
Yeah.
I know it sounds sometimes cliche, but I guess it's like it's like you're saying, if you sat on that idea of like, oh, I've got this idea, but I have my thing, which is presenting and being a journalist, and I'll leave that there. And I always say, just write the idea down, write it down, try it, tell someone, wake up every morning, try another part, because creative writing, I think, is generally one of the hardest things to do. It's like, luckily I write for comedy, so I get to go on stage, it works, cool. Doesn't work, I get to keep trying and see what works. Whereas when I've written scripted and I've showed it to people, the nerves, I'm like, hey, like, check it out if you like it. I don't know. It might be all
and
right.
then you're like, what are they going to say? And you're waiting for the email.
yeah. But that's an amazing achievement, and it's out in July, right?
Yes, it is out in July. It's called Deadline.
Amazing.
I always thought that the book people came up with the name of the book as well, and they were like, what do you want to call it? And I was like, I don't know. Deadline. So
did you do some signed copies as well?
I have, but do you know what? I didn't know this, right? So if you get a book and it's got a signature in it and it says in print signed by the author, they actually didn't sign the book, they just signed that page, and you get sent a load of pages to your house. So I got sent like 3,000 pages, and you just sign each one, and then
that's what I done.
And then they go into the. I didn't know that. It's called a tip-in.
Yes. Oh, I just thought it was signing the book. I got tons of these pages. And they said, can you sign it? And I was like, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And then, they put it
in the book,
yes. Yeah.
But my little girl wanted to help when I was doing it. So I thought, I'll just let her do a couple of them, because there's always a bit of wastage, isn't there? But then she started drawing these really nice drawings on.
Oh, wow.
So I've kept them to go in the book. So some people are going to get a signed book with a little drawing from my little girl.
Yeah. I don't know if you found this, but when you sign a book at first, maybe the first 100.
I know what you're going to say.
It was the funnest I was giving him the best signature.
Totally.
But I don't know how many you signed. How many
it was a few thousand. It was
I think we done 5,000.
Yeah.
And I remember probably about at 300, I was just like, oh, come on, man. And I'm trying to do it, but I was like, okay, let's go. And it's not to say I didn't care, because I was really enjoying it, but I was like, fool, if you got those first 300, you've got a really nice signature. I remember I started practicing it. If you're close to maybe like the 3,000 odd, I'm sorry, man, I was tired. It was a long day, and we finally got to. But I done the same thing of leaving some with like personalized messages.
Yes.
As well. But I think the book, I believe that's going to be like a Times bestseller. I feel like that.
Oh, I hope so.
I feel like that's the vibe, and that's what the authors will say as well. They're like, it's all about the first week.
Yeah, I know, God. Yeah, because I'm like mates with Richard Osman, and obviously he's the king of the crime book.
Of course.
And I was saying to him, and I remember before he'd even published, we were both talking about writing crime books. And and he was saying, don't worry about the first week of publishing. But that's all anyone's talking to me.
That's the big week.
Yeah.
Shift those copies, man.
Yeah, so the pre-orders, I didn't think pre-orders were that important.
Pre-orders,
but it's like...
Yeah. And you want people to get the physical as opposed to the one on the ebooks.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful experience buying your own book.
Yeah.
I remember when I bought my own book. I was very shy. I went to Selfridges, because if you go to like a Selfridges or like a really nice Waterstones, the books, not to say another, I don't want to put down any other bookstores, but there's some places where the books are really well presented.
Yeah, independent bookshops are good at that as well.
And I had this really nice moment where I went to go and get the book, and this one guy was like looking at me, and he's looking at the book, and he's like, oh. And I said, oh yeah, that one's really good, He didn't know it was me.
I didn't know you.
He didn't know. And he goes, oh, okay, well, I might check it out. And he bought it, and I was like, he bought the book. And then there was another time where I think there was this young kid was with his dad, and then he was like, wait, you Mo Gilligan, right? And I was like, yeah. And then his dad was like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And I was like, oh, it's fine, man. I was like, I'm just here to buy my book.
Yeah.
And the dad was like, wow, a book, wow. Clearly middle class white guy.
Yeah.
A book, wow. And he bought a book. So honestly, just go to as many bookshops as possible and just buy your own book. I know.
And change the display so that all yours are prominent.
Oh yeah, no, I do that. I still go into Waterstones now, and I'm like, no, one copy. Let's put that right at the front in the biopic. But then also, Yeah, they were selling some of my books in Aldi for like £2.
Oh, I'll be in the bargain bucket, I'm sure, at some point.
But then there was a part of me that was like, I want people to read it at any cost. Whether it's £1.50p or you got it for free, just read the thing.
The publishers obviously want you to sell as many as you can. But I know what you mean.
Should have probably say this right now.
Yeah.
So
I went round once to do some filming with, I won't name who it was, but a famous presenter who had an autobiography, right? And I needed to do something in their garage, and in their garage was tons of copies of their book. And they'd obviously, to get into the bestseller list, bought a lot of their own books. Which I never said anything at the time, but I just thought, and I thought that's going to be me. I'm going to be like,
if you get that call, hey man, can you post something on your Instagram? You're like, hey, listen, guys, I need everyone to buy 100 copies of the book first week.
Yeah.
I can't lie, I did think of that, but I was like, I ain't got the space. I know they were all going to turn up, and I was like, I ain't got the space for these books, so then I just end up just giving them out to family and friends. But you so like, as we get towards the end of the pod, like your end, like, because you know the things that you're doing now of, you know, being a presenter, but also I feel like, you know, you get to show a bit more of your personality.
Yeah.
But then you know you have your passions as well that you still love with your, you know, your podcast as well. So with your end, how do you start to kind of like, you know, model your end in some ways? Because it's like you're saying, like, you know, you come to London to commute, you still enjoy home life essentially, and, you know, walking your daughter to school. So do you start to like really like look at like what you want to do? Maybe, I don't know whether it's
how to finish up with it all, do you mean? Like where?
Yeah, in some ways. Because the only reason why I asked, because that question got posed to me, and I was like, I have to put it in the podcast, because no one ever, I think it's so easy to think in the moment as opposed to look towards your future of, do I want to do this forever? Or like now you're becoming an author. I think that's one of the coolest things of like creative writing. You know, do you kind of look more to that side? I
think so. I think, do you know what, right? I've always had this thing of like, oh, I'm going to retire early and just enjoy my life. But I don't think my brain would actually let me do that. So I have all these grand plans of, you know, like you mentioned, I live up in the northeast by the seaside, and it's fab, and my little girl's at school there, and that's all really lovely. And then I come to London and I go into this mad like media and corporate world, and you know I'm still doing a lot of like financial news and things. So, and I keep thinking, oh, I should slow down and all that, but I just, whenever it comes to it, I just don't. I think I'm just someone who, you know, and I've got a retail business as well now, and I just love like doing a million things. So as much as I can say to you, my end is me nicely sitting in a lovely place writing books for the rest of my life. Which like my sensible head would say, yeah, that's cool, do that. That'll be really fun. Hopefully if people buy them and want to read them. But I just don't think I can. I just think I'm 100 miles an hour. And that'll always be me. And because I don't know if you're like this, but I just cannot sit still. I can't I've got to do something. I've got to be doing something. I've got to be thinking about what the next project is, or what am I going to do next? Okay, what should we do? Should we set up a business? Does anyone want to set up a business? I'm like, so I think my end is like just being, I'll probably have a heart attack in like some like corporate meeting,
touch wood, Steph,
and that'll be the end. I'll be like,
the wood, man.
And that'll be the end. It'll be, she had all these plans to slow down and she never did. And she, you know, died in the middle of delivering the fiscal policy details of the government. And that'll be that. But I don't mind that. I think it's just, if you enjoy, I think I've definitely learned to enjoy days more and enjoy your life more. Because sometimes I forget what I've done because it's been that mad. I forget that I've I've interviewed Trump before, and so I think you've got to. I've really learned in like the last 10 years, and I've lost some friends along the way, you know, from various different things, and so I'm really ground myself in there. Like, actually, this is really class. I've got a great life. My child's healthy and happy, and so am I, and I've got a lovely family. Like, just don't, you know, enjoy those days. Yeah.
And I think what's really nice is the fact that how like you still continue to like represent up north of having living up there, having your show up there. I think it's like really testament to like where you've come from, who you are, and what you're able to do and achieve, because it's like you're saying, you know, you go down to London and everyone's like, say Coke, and you're like, please, man, it's not that deep. I'm not from a different planet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But I like the two worlds. Also, part of the reason for going north is I want my daughter to have a northern accent. So it's really like,
hello, mummy.
Yeah. Oh no, she hasn't quite got it yet. She still sounds a bit posh, to be honest. But yeah.
Mummy, I will not be eating the gravy and the chips. No way, mummy.
Yeah. So
that's like the fear, isn't it? It's like when you become successful, knowing like your kids are gonna have these accents. So you're like, listen, we didn't grow up like that, man. We didn't do that.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, wicked. Well, Steph, man, it's been a pleasure, man, to have you on the pod.
It's like been like therapy, this.
Oh, thank you, man. No, I appreciate you, man. So this has been your beginning, middle, and end. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steph. Appreciate you, man. Hey, what's up? Thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. Now, a lot goes into making each episode. I know you hear my voice, but there's a team behind the scenes who help make it. And if you did enjoy it, I'd really, really appreciate if you could show the love to them by giving us 5 stars. And if you also have the time, please leave us a review. It's always appreciated, and we love reading the comments. And of course, we want to keep making it better. Thank you for listening, and have a great day. Peace.